WTF. I know you know what that means. I'm Scott, one of the movie defenders, and welcome to the first installment of a regular segment I'll be putting out there in video on our YouTube channel and Facebook and other places where I'm going to talk about and rant about something irking me about Hollywood, movies, or maybe a lot of the times the fans. And if you listen to our show, the Movie Defenders podcast, you'll know me ranting is actually something that happens on the reg. So if you listen to our show, this isn't going to be anything new for you. But this will let me get a little bit more in depth on something that maybe we'll cover on the show, maybe we won't. But a couple things happened this week that made me go WTF. Star Wars fans. And let me put the air quotes out there. Fans. People who liked the original trilogy and haven't liked anything since. I'm not sure. Look, if you want to say you're a Star Wars fan, you can say it. But if you've literally hated everything since 1980 or 83, I think that you're an original trilogy fan more than you're really a Star Wars fan. But anyway, the Star Wars fans, in air quotes, have been, especially since Force Awakens, but really since The Last Jedi, have been in confirmation bias, groupthink overload. They look for any tiny little chink in the armor, any quote, any little thing that someone might be able to say that can prove their venom-spewing YouTube videos have been correct, that this is all horrible, and Disney meddles in everything, and it's just awful, and it's tired. It's so freaking tired. This week, it happened again. And it got my rant meter going up, so I figured I might as well let it out here. So what happened this week? Well, Bob Iger put out a memoir of sorts. And it's a book that he's put out about his 15 years as CEO over Disney. And in it, he's got a couple quotes about Star Wars. And the haters are grabbing these and running with them. And all I can tell you here in a second is that it is a big nothing burger. It is like so much I see in news today where bombshell, blah, blah, blah. And someone's like, oh my God, there's a thing. And then you dig in a little bit and you go, oh, well, they took a quote out of context. And now that's viral. The correction won't be. And everybody thinks that the sky's purple. And you can't convince them it's not. So this is a plague in our modern discourse, whether it be objective or subjective things. Anyway, it doesn't preclude Hollywood and movies. So what happened? So Bob Iger puts out two quotes. Now let's talk about him a little bit. Star Wars fans, like I said, try to grab this stuff. I mean, I remember a while back being inundated with YouTube videos and articles that Kathleen Kennedy's getting fired. They're so unhappy with her in The Last Jedi. Oh, she's so stupid. Right before she got a contract extension. So you all are so smart, aren't you? Anyway, that said, Bob Iger said a couple of things. And one of them had to do with George Lucas's reaction, and he used a hyperbolic word, and everyone's grabbed it. So what happened basically was when they did the merger and they bought the rights to Star Wars, they also purchased, as part of it, and they didn't have to, but they chose to, 3 treatments for 3 new movies, episodes 7, 8, and 9, that Lucas had planned. The treatments are basic story outline ideas. It wasn't a script. There wasn't anything too fleshed out, just ideas. So basically, when they were meeting with him to discuss the first film, he wasn't thrilled, he was disappointed. And the reason he was disappointed was he thought they were going to use his treatments, and that's the reason they bought him, but they weren't contractually obligated to do so. They just wanted everything. So from Bob Iger's book, the quote is, George immediately got upset as they began to describe the plot, and it dawned on him that we weren't using one of the stories he submitted during the negotiations. George knew we weren't contractually bound to anything, but he thought that our buying the story treatments was a tacit promise that we'd follow them, and he was disappointed that his story was being discarded. I'd been so careful since our first conversation not to mislead him in any way, and I don't think I had now, but I could have handled it better. Basically, somehow Lucas kind of got the idea they're going to use his idea, and they didn't. And he doesn't really give the idea that they necessarily were going to. Now, I want to point this out too. This is a Lucasfilm deal. Everyone says this is the House of Mouse and Disney's pulling every string. They don't. They don't meddle. Now, when you're at this level of negotiating the acquisition of Star Wars, yes, they're freaking involved. Bob Iger's involved. They're buying Lucasfilm. That's the deal. So they're going to be involved in that. But since then, we've got a lot of stuff on our. We've interviewed people. We've got interviews. Disney does not meddle. They don't meddle in Star Wars. They don't meddle in Marvel. And just because you hate them doesn't mean you get to point the finger at them and say they do. That's another rabbit hole for another day. But I don't get the big deal. I don't. I would be disappointed if they didn't use my stories. They're my stories. I'm proud of them. I obviously thought enough about them to give them to him and sell them and make. If he wasn't upset by it, I think we should all be surprised, right? Well, in there's another quote that said he felt betrayed. And everyone's grabbing that. Oh, they've betrayed George Lucas. The Star Wars haters can't figure out what they want to do. They've been hating George Lucas ever since Episode 1 came out. They've been dragging his name all over the mud. Then Disney gets Star Wars, and suddenly he's the superhero again. Suddenly he's the hero that must be protected. They can't even decide where they want to spew their venom at. So anyway, he didn't hide his disappointment. He said a couple things. Here's what he really had a problem with. Just to paraphrase the quote, I'll read the quote. He said he didn't hide his disappointment. What Lucas said was there's nothing new. In each of the films in the original trilogy, it was important to him to have new worlds, new stories, new characters, new tech. There weren't enough visual or technical leaps forward. So, to Lucas, that tech piece was always a really important piece to him to push the technology forward as part of making Star Wars, because it's what made Star Wars in the original trilogy so successful. These days, though, he didn't really, and I think that's why some people have problems with the prequels. I do not. I do, but not to the level the Venom spewers do. He kind of underestimated what Star Wars fans kind of want, or at least a certain segment of them, right? So Lucasfilm, under Disney, but Lucasfilm, say it with me, everybody, Lucasfilm, they decided we need a story that's going to do a tightrope act. It's going to take the things that you know and love and show you different kind of versions of them. They'll be familiar. At the same time, start a whole new story up and all new characters, all new stuff. And if you don't think that's true, look at The Last Jedi. So they get crapped on for Episode 7 for not being original enough, even though we've got a full 3-hour show on our podcast examining our Episode 7, examining if it's the same as A New Hope or same as anything else. It's not. It's easy to see. It's not that freaking hard. Then they go out and they do The Last Jedi, and suddenly everybody freaking hates it. So they can't do the old stuff, and they can't do the new stuff. Screw everything in the middle. They can't win. So Star Wars fans, if you're in that camp, I can't help you. You're off the bandwagon. There's room for more people. Good riddance as far as I'm concerned. The other thing that he said that's WTF, everyone's grabbing hold of, is he made another comment, and he did it during a shareholder meeting months back, that he feels like they put out too much Star Wars content too fast. That they did Force Awakens, Rogue One, they did Last Jedi, they did Solo, they were doing one a year, and that's too many, and Solo's the reason they think that. Here's the thing. What does Solo have that's different than any of the other films? There's two things Solo makes that's different about it than the other Star Wars movies that came out. 3. One's the release date. The other 3 were in December. This one was in May. Secondly, it's made for the superfan, okay? Rogue One also, but Rogue One tied up plot elements that even the most casual Star Wars fan understood. Oh, this Death Star and how they blow that up. Oh, okay, cool, I'm in. A specialized young Adventures of Han Solo story is one that the real super fans want. It's not something everybody's going to want. Or at least they're like, I don't need to rush to the theater to see it. I can see it some other time. So it was made for the super fan. And then number 3, and this is the big one, 2 words, Infinity War. Okay, Infinity War that year and Endgame this year have taken out 2 franchises that normally can expect hundreds of millions of dollars. And everyone thinks it's a film, and I don't. Solo was the first one. Dark Phoenix was the second one. Everyone was excited for Dark Phoenix until 2 things happened. Endgame was put out a month before it, and everyone was watching Endgame and pushing it over Avatar. And secondly, the Fox merger had happened, and everyone knew that was going to be the last X-Men movie. So, okay, their interest waned. But I think they underestimated the power of Infinity War and Endgame, because those movies you have to see them. If you're into the MCU, you can't miss it. Even if you've only seen half the Marvel movies, those people went and saw those films and went multiple times. So you put a specialized, even Dark Phoenix is a character study about a specific character in the X-Men universe. It doesn't do a lot to tell the whole. It doesn't need to. It's for X-Men fans. I liked the movie. I thought it was a great installment. I didn't think it was the best they've done, but I didn't think there's anything wrong with it. Certainly not worthy of the venom out there. That's the thing. So I just disagree with Bob Iger. I think it was timing. I think that after the Ron Howard coming in, and they just pushed it to December and done a December release, it would have been fine. They would have ruled the airwaves and ruled the world until Captain Marvel came out, and it would have been fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But that's just my take on that. So either way, is this really all that shocking? One thing he said months ago already, he said he thinks they put out too many. And then George Lucas is upset about The Force Awakens. Really? That's what you're going to grab your YouTube videos and start going, see, I told you it sucks. Look, it sucks. WTF. Star Wars fans, I'm going to have fun at The Rise of Skywalker. You can stay home. I don't care. I'm going to have fun. If you like this video and you think that the things that I'm saying kind of mirror things you've thought, or maybe you didn't think they were quite that bad, maybe you're like, they're good, but not great, or whatever. The Movie Defenders podcast, find it on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. You can find it anywhere. We've got lots of hours of content about The Last Jedi, The Force Awakens, and everything else in between. And we examine these things and really unpack them and see if there's really truth behind it. And I invite you to do that. So that is the first installment of WTF. I'm Scott, one of the Movie Defenders. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I'm sure that if you're one of the YouTube clan that's been throwing Kathy Kennedy under the bus, like they can't figure out what they want to be mad at. First they're mad at George Lucas. Now they're mad at Disney, and George Lucas should be listened to. And then they're mad at Kathy Kennedy, and then they're mad at now Ryan Johnson's a freaking idiot. And it just it's never gonna end. If it's not the movie they got in their head, they hate it. They're not gonna like it. So, all right, guys, I'm out of here. Until the next time, something makes me want to rant. WTF, guys. I'm Scott, the Movie Defenders. Take it easy.